Hello viewers, welcome back to the channel, and today I just have a steering knuckle, and I'm going to be pressing in a new wheel bearing. Now, a little bit of some history on this steering knuckle. It came out of a 2010 Toyota Corolla with the 1.8 liter engine, and unfortunately the wheel bearing was not pressed in correctly on this, so I'm going to be pressing in a new wheel bearing. Now, previously the old wheel bearing was pressed out and a new one was pressed in, but it was not pressed in correctly, and so now there's a little bit of play in the wheel bearing now as I move the hub back and forth, although it still spins smoothly and operates, but there's play in the wheel bearing because it has been damaged previously because of incorrect installation. Now, if you look closely inside the steering knuckle, that the inner race has been slightly pushed out because it was not properly supported when the hub was pressed in, and so now because that the inner race is pushed out, the wheel bearings have been damaged now because the inner race has to be supported by something as you are pressing the hub in. And so I'll show you later in the video on how to properly install the wheel bearing and to reuse the old hub, because in a majority of cases you can reuse the old hub without having any issues, but if you want to use a new hub, you can. You don't have to. You can almost always reuse the old hub without any issues. So now the first thing you want to do is to hammer out the hub. So in order to do that, I have a 30 millimeter socket that fits perfectly there, and I'm just going to hammer it out. Now, in this particular case, I just have a few blocks of wood supporting it on the table, so hopefully I'll be able to hammer it out, or you can use a vise and hammer it out there to hold it in place for you. So I'm just going to use a socket and a hammer to hammer out the hub. So now, if that does not work for you, you can turn the knuckle on the side and try to hammer out the hub that way. Hopefully you don't damage anything in the process. Just I started to move now. So now I'm starting to see that the socket is a tiny bit slightly too big for the opening, so I'm just going to use something like this that I have from my adapter kit and just hammer it out from there. You can see it's has started to move now. So you can use like a smaller socket if you wish. It doesn't matter, just as long as you have something to knock it out. Just almost all the way through now. I can change this to a larger socket if I want. It's just almost all the way out now. So I can grab a socket of some sort. This is a 15, 16, 24 millimeter. So I'm just going to hammer this all the way through now. So you can see it's just almost all the way out for the hub. So we just need to keep on hammering. So we were just going to keep on hammering. And it's all the way through now. That's the hub. You can see that the inner race is stuck inside there. So I'm gonna show you on how to get that off, and we will most likely be reusing this hub. So I'll show you on how to get that off. So now we have removed the hub and exposed the inside of the wheel bearing. So we probably going to have to get this out in order to press it out properly, because all this stuff is in the way. You have the seal and the cage and everything. So it's best to remove all this stuff with like a screwdriver or something. So that way it'll be easier to get access to press out the outer part of the wheel bearing. We are going to be pressing it down this way. On the Toyotas and Lexus vehicles, they are different than the other vehicles, so it's going to be dependent on which vehicle you are working on. But on the Toyotas, usually you press them out this way, and you press the wheel bearing in uh, going this way. So what we are going to be doing next is to remove the retaining ring, or the snap ring, or C-clip, or whatever you want to call it. uh, I have a snap ring tool that I'm using here. It's a bit smaller than what it's supposed to be used for. I do have a larger one, but I'm not sure on where I put it, so I'm just going to be using this. This one is a bit too small, but it will still work. So just make sure that when you are doing these jobs, to make sure that you have safety glasses on, or safety goggles, because more often than not, the the retaining ring can go flying out and hit you in the face. So you need to be careful. Make sure you have all of your safety gear on when you are doing these jobs. We're gonna remove the retaining ring. Now, on this particular one, these retaining rings, or snap ring, or C-clip, they often get rusted and seized if you live in the Rust Belt, so they don't always cooperate. In some worst cases, you may need to heat them up, or cut them off. But on this particular one, it's okay, because it has been taken apart before, and previously, when it was originally taken apart, everything came out smoothly with no issues. It was not like rusted or anything like that. So we're going to take this out. slipped off, so we are going to try again. Sometimes have to use a try like a few times in order to get it out. But this is not the correct size because I don't have my other retaining ring at the moment. I don't have my other snap ring pliers at the moment. We're going to get this out. So that's out. This is the retaining ring. And this retaining ring is still in good shape. It's fairly new, so we can probably reuse this. Usually I don't recommend reusing the retaining rings. I recommend a brand new one each and every time for safety. There's one that you can get, retaining ring from a Timken. The part number is RAT188. This is a brand new one, but I'm just going to save this because the other one is still in good shape. There isn't anything wrong with it, so I'm just going to save this one and reuse this one because this one is still is fairly new. So now we're going to flip this over, grab a screwdriver or something, remove the inner parts here so that we can gain access to the metal sleeve on the outside. It'll be a lot easier to press the wheel bearing out. Remove the seal and get it out of there. Just comes out after that. Just has like a plastic cage. Now we have exposed the area. Some grease in there. Just having a look inside before we start to press this out. So now you can see the remainder of the balls for the ball bearings, the wheel bearing. So I think we might be able to press this out now, to push against here and to get it out, because there's no way to press it out from here. It's all the way in the inside. So we may be able to press it downwards on the outside edges on the press. So now we are at the shop press. I will get back to the hub later in the video after we're done pressing out and in the wheel bearing. So I'm just using some adapters that I have from my kits. I will post the links in the description if you guys want the same kit. I'm just using like multiple kits for the wheel bearing adapters and stuff. So anyhow, I'm going to place the steering knuckle like this because I need an opening for the bearing to come out and to support the steering knuckle. So we're going to do this, just making sure it's centered properly. Once that's centered, we are going to place an adapter inside. So we are going to place the adapter inside here and to press it down, and we should be able to get the wheel bearing out. So we are going to go ahead now. Probably need to get a socket in there to push it down with, because the shop press only travels ever so much. So we're going to place a socket. Start to hear some noises after. I have about 2.5 tons on this. You can see on the gauge it's about 2.5 tons. Just going to stop there and release it. Pretty much almost out. Just the adapter still in there. So just pretty much almost out now. So we need to keep on pressing it down a tiny bit more. I may need to change adapters because now I've exposed the outer part, so now I'm able to press down here instead of here. But I think that still could work. We're going to continue to press out the remainder. And the entire bearing is pressed out now. And there's the bearing. So now the bearing is out. This is what it looks like. So we are going to save this because we are going to be needing it for later to help us to press in the hub and the bearing. So we just use this as a reference. So now you can see that everything is out. So we're just going to clean this up just like a quick wipe and some brake cleaner, but you don't want to clean the surfaces or anything. You just want to clean all the dirt and debris out with just a shop rag and some brake cleaner, and then that's it. If you want, if it's like too like rusty inside the grooves and where the retaining ring sits in, you can clean the rust with like a grinding wheel in between, just to clean out the rust in the grooves only. You don't want to clean here, because then uh, when you go to press in a new wheel bearing, it's not going to set in tight. It's not going to be a tight fit. So there's a specific tolerance inside these steering knuckles. So you don't want to clean anything in here. You just want to do a quick wipe, and then that's it. So moving forward, and we still have to get the inner race that is stuck onto the hub. So usually you can use like a grinding wheel and to cut a line to relieve the pressure, and use an air hammer or a chisel to drive this out. Or we can create an X with a grinding wheel and use a chisel or air hammer to get it out. Alternatively, I've seen guys use the oxyacetylene torch. You can heat it up with a torch as you spin this somehow, and the inner race will just come out through the expansion of the heat. So we're just gonna use a tiny cut-off wheel just to cut through here, and hopefully we're able to get this off. You can use like a Dremel or something, or I'm just using a Milwaukee. This is a very small die grinder here, a cut-off wheel. So now you don't want to cut all the way through. You just want to make a line or two lines like an X, so you're able to get it out. I'm just gonna be using an air hammer. It's okay if you make a tiny like like a neck, and that's not going to do any harm or damage. That's perfectly safe. So now I'm just going to hammer it out now. So now you can see it has started to move. I know that sometimes you can make an X or just a single line. It's up to you. And then as soon as you have it loose, you should be able to get it out after that. So as soon as you get it loose, you should be able to get it out. And then once you relieve the pressure, you should be able to get the inner race out. You can see there's like a hairline crack from the grinding and stuff. So that's that. Uh, you don't need to be too worried about the minor imperfections. That shouldn't be too much of a concern. you will undoubtedly you will get like a nick or two on here, and that's perfectly fine. It's not a problem. If you want, you can lightly use uh, some higher grit sandpaper, like 120 grit or 300 grit sandpaper, grind down the small imperfections, but I don't think it's necessary. You should be fine. So you can reuse this without any problems. So now, before we install our new wheel bearing, we should just clean out the surfaces, use some brake cleaner to clean the dirt and debris that may be in there. Clean any dirt or debris that may be inside there, so that way when you press the new wheel bearing in, there won't be any issues. You won't have any pieces of dirt or rust particles inside there causing any problems. So now I'm going to be heading over back to the press. I'm using the National bearings. It's by Federal Mogul. It's the same company that makes Moog parts. So I've been using National wheel bearings for a very long time, and haven't had any issues with these wheel bearings. So if you want, you can get the Toyota OEM coil bearings if you want. I forget how much they are. They're probably going for roughly $140 Canadian uh, a piece. So it's kind of expensive, but coil bearings are good quality. They'll last you a long time. It's up to you, or you can go aftermarket. You can get these national wheel bearings, and they work fine too. These national wheel bearings might cost probably like $70 to $80 now. Uh, Retail probably close to $120 or something in store if you're just a regular customer. So they're not cheap. They are expensive overall. So now what I like to do before I install the new wheel bearing, I just like to put a tiny bit of grease on the outside edges just to make it easier to press in the new wheel bearing so that it goes in smoothly just on the outer edges. You don't need too much, just a tiny bit on the outside, and that should be fine. Now for the new wheel bearings on these Toyotas, there's no direction as to which way to put them in. On some vehicles, they'll have the reluctor ring facing a specific direction on the one end. So you want to make sure that the reluctor ring is facing to the direction and where the wheel speed sensor is going to go. So say for example the wheel speed sensor is over here, the reluctor ring is going to be facing upwards because that's where the wheel speed sensor is going to go in for the ABS. So anyhow, I'm just going to place this in here. This is how we are going to press in the wheel bearing going this way. So we want to make sure that it's straight before you start to press it in. Just try your best to keep it as straight as possible. It's going to be impossible to be 100% straight. So this press eventually will correct itself when you try to press it in, as long as it's not crooked. Just make sure it's as straight as possible to the best of your ability, and then you can continue to proceed. So earlier in the video, I was saying to save the old wheel bearings, to never throw them out, because you're going to be using this to help you to press in the new wheel bearing. So this is like a guide and a reference tool. So it's good to keep these after you're finished. So we're going to keep this straight down. Keep this bearing straight. We're going to put this here, and you can use the same adapter that you used to remove the old wheel bearing. So you can use the same adapter, or you can use one that on the outside if you want. It doesn't really matter. Make sure that this is perfectly lined up and straight, so we can press in the new wheel bearing. And to get this lined up straight, so we're going to get this straight and press in the new wheel bearing. What's going in? This is just the noise of the press. So it's only a 12-ton press. So we're going to keep going until we have reached the end. We are going to stop now because we are building pressure. It's not in exactly all the way just yet, but we are almost there. We are going to continue to press. We're about 2 to 3 tons as we are pressing this in. So I'm starting to feel some pressure. So we're going to let go. Once you start to feel some pressure, then you'll know that you're just almost all the way through. We're not all the way through yet because the groove for the retaining ring is not exposed yet. We're not all the way there. There's still some more travel room. reaches about 4 tons, and then it drops after that. So once you see that, I believe we're all the way through now, because it does not drop from 4 to almost 0. So that's how you know you're all the way through. So that's when you need to stop. You can see the retaining ring groove is exposed. So we have reached the very end of the travel, the very end of the, I guess you can say, the housing. So we're all good now. And what's left is we need to press the hub in now. So now the wheel bearing is in. And now we need to install the snap ring, or the retaining ring. I'm not using the proper snap ring size, because I don't have any other one. So it slips every now and then. So just trying my best to get it in the grooves properly. Make sure everything is in. Uh, the way I make sure that everything is in, you take a flathead screwdriver and just, you can use your fist. Make sure it's inserted correctly, because this retaining ring, snap ring, is extremely important, because this is what holds the wheel bearing in place. Because if you don't have this retaining ring, then the wheel bearing can fall out. Just make sure that you go across and into lightly tap inside. Make sure it's seated in correctly, and then you should be good from there. And just be careful not to damage or hit the seal, uh, and we should be all good from there. uh, we just need to install the hub now, which is the typically installing the hub is usually, in my opinion, the hardest part, because you want to make sure that you don't damage the wheel bearing. So now we're just going to grab a rag and wipe down the hub. You can reuse this if you want, or you can reuse a brand new one if you want to. It doesn't really matter. I do have a spare hub laying around. I've had some spare parts here and there, so you can reuse the old one, or you can use a new one if you want. There's no issue with reusing the old one. Because of demonstration purposes, I'm just going to be using a new one. There's no issues with the old one, but I just want to use a new one instead. So we are going to proceed now to go over to the press again and to press in the hub. This entire video, I'm just making it for the sake of the viewers, so you guys can learn. I'm just doing this for demonstration purposes. I'm not going to be using the steering knuckle at this time, but I may be using it in the future. So now this one is going to be the most crucial and tricky part, the most important. You want to get an adapter to support the inner race here. Over here, it needs to be perfectly on the inner race. You don't want to put it somewhere anywhere else. It needs to be exactly on the inner race, so that way you will be supporting it, because you can see the inner and the outer race. It's like a sandwich. you want to keep them together, because if you don't have this supported, then the race it will push out, and then it's going to destroy the wheel bearings, and then you have to start all the way back from the very beginning. So you want to make sure you get something to support the inner race as you are doing this. So what we're going to do is to put this hub like so. Put this on top. Exactly in the middle. Just like that. And the socket. Socket on top. Just like that. We're going to center this as much as possible. Just making sure everything is straight before I push this in. So we want to continue. We're going to have this on this side. So as you are pressing in the hub, you want to make sure that you turn this to make sure that it still is spinning, still turning. So that way you know that the wheel bearing and everything is good. So we're going to slowly start uh, pressing this in. Try to get it perfectly centered as possible. Make sure that you are turning this as you are pressing it in. So I'm going to keep going down. So I'm going to keep going. Just making sure to see if I have reached the end yet. So I'm just almost there now. Uh, just trying to see if I've reached the full travel yet or not. I still have not. It's not building up pressure yet. Yeah, I think we are maxed out now because the pressure is building up now. So we are going to stop. We are going to stop now because the pressure is building up, and that's how we know that we have reached the end of the travel. So that's it. Everything looks okay here visually. Spin the hub. There's no play or anything, so that's how you know everything is good. Earlier in the video, I could see that the inner race was uh, popped out of place, so that's how I know that there was an issue. Now it looks perfectly good, so we're all good now. So now we have a freshly pressed wheel bearing. Uh, we're all good to go. Now you can install this back onto the vehicle. Just make sure everything spins freely, and make sure that there's no play in the hub, and you should be all good to go now. And that should conclude everything for this video. And so that's it for this one. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please don't forget to give it a like, and please consider subscribing to my channel if you're not already a subscriber, and please don't forget to hit that bell notification if you haven't done so. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a good day and take care.